Good Thursday evening. I am meteorologist Nicole Hartford. Thank you for joining us here on 11 Alive Plus for the special 9 p.m. stream. Today was a beautiful but yes, very hot day across North Georgia. A few of us enjoyed a little bit of rain-cooled air, and we're still tracking a couple isolated showers across the area, although they're much more hit and miss now. This is our view currently from Decatur, which is looking towards the city, and you can still see remnants of a little bit of light rainfall falling across portions of the metro. For the most part, though, we are seeing a mix of cloud cover and sunshine, although it's fading quickly into darkness as the sun sets. Current temperatures are sitting mostly in the 80s. We're at 84 degrees right now in Atlanta, but when you factor in that humidity, it actually feels like 88. We've got winds out of the south-southwest at about 8 miles per hour. And dew points close to that 70 mark. Typically, when you think of dew points, that's a measure of our humidity. The higher the dew point, the higher the humidity. And 70 is what I consider that threshold of feeling really uncomfortable. It's very typical this time of year for us to see dew points in the upper 60s and the low 70s. So nothing about our current conditions is really out of the ordinary. Temperature-wise, we're seeing quite a big spread. Locations that picked up a little bit more rainfall throughout the afternoon are slightly milder. So we're down into the 70s in Carrollton at 77, Peachtree City at 79, Atlanta at 84, Marietta at 83, Covington 82. Meanwhile, out towards Duluth, we're still at 88 degrees and Athens at 86. Keep in mind, with our high humidity, it does feel a little bit warmer than the actual air temperature. So we're going into this evening with more heat and humidity. As far as rain is concerned, there are still a couple isolated showers across the area. I mentioned you could see some areas of very light rainfall looking from our Decatur cam, and that is showing up on the radar mainly down towards the south side, but anything that we watch develop through the next couple hours will likely stay very, very light. A lot of this is driven by the heat and humidity, so storms bubble up in the afternoon and then quickly subside into the overnight hours. We do still have the remnants of a few stronger storms that were down towards the south of the city just a few hours ago. These are currently working their way up towards the north. We're still seeing pockets of some heavier rainfall out towards Lumpkin County. Again, these are weakening, and especially now with the setting sun, these will continue to weaken quickly. So any rainfall you pick up will be pretty short-lived, but it could be heavy at times. A lot of this rainfall that popped up throughout the day today was fueled in part by tropical moisture. We've been watching this system down in the Gulf of Mexico, down in the Gulf for really the last week or so. It was an area of low pressure off the Atlantic coast. It moved into the far northern Gulf, and it's just kind of been sitting there the last few days, pushing a lot of that tropical moisture up towards the north. So we are seeing impacts from this tropical system. Now, when it comes to any actual tropical development, at this point, it doesn't look likely. That tropical wave has moved out of the Gulf onshore into Louisiana, but it is producing a lot of rainfall, leading to prolonged periods of heavier rainfall throughout portions of Louisiana. Now, this officially has a 0% chance of development over the next couple of days from the National Hurricane Center. It's now no longer over open water. It's moving inland, but it's still producing a lot of rain, and it's still sending tropical moisture our way. The remnants of this area of low pressure, this little tropical wave, will continue moving up northward, likely pretty slowly in the coming days, which means it's far enough away that we're not seeing widespread rain associated with this, but it is pushing in a little additional moisture that will help to fuel our showers and storms through not only this weekend, but even into next week. So that tropical moisture is really going to help us out when it comes to rainfall potential and maybe even rainfall coverage. That tropical moisture, this is a look at our air moisture map. So reds, oranges, yellows, that's where humidity is higher. There's more moisture in the air. Obviously, it's centered around that area of low pressure, but as that ejects up towards the north, it's going to send even more of that moisture temperature our way, and we'll potentially be seeing impacts here in North Georgia even into the beginning of this week. So what does that mean for us? It is going to stay hot and humid. That humidity not going anywhere will be fueled by that tropical moisture, which not only leads to better rainfall potential, but it could also lead to some heavier tropical downpours. In the summertime months, we're used to those kind of intense thunderstorms that drop very heavy rainfall and bring lightning. They intensify quickly, and we could be seeing more of that in the coming afternoons. Our rain chances will hover around 30 to 40% to end out the week, go into the weekend and into next week. So no one day is a guarantee for rainfall. Honestly, our forecast and our weather pattern, despite being aided by the tropical moisture, stays about the same as what we've been seeing the last couple of weeks. So these daily pop-up showers and storms that really are mainly in the afternoon hours. Here's how it plays out hour by hour on our forecast track. So anything that's left of the rainfall right now, that will clear out through the overnight. We may have a stray shower early tomorrow morning, but for the most part, we're starting off our Friday dry, a mix of cloud cover and sunshine to start off the day. As we go throughout the afternoon, we will start to build in a little bit more cloud cover and then also watch as some isolated showers and storms develop. So these are not going to be widespread, but they will again come with that potential of some heavier rainfall. So by 2 or 3 o'clock, a few isolated areas of rain, coverage increases as we go into the evening hours, and then things kind of start to settle as we make our way into the overnight. Very similar to what we've seen the last few weeks when it comes to those showers and storms. Temperature-wise, you may be hoping for some rainfall because it could provide a little bit of rain-cooled air. Temperatures today got up to 92 degrees in Atlanta. That's not that far off from where we typically are for this time of year. Our average high in Atlanta is 90. Our morning lows, however, have been running a few degrees above average. We only got down to 77 this morning. Normal low in Atlanta is 72. This is a pretty big improvement from where we were just a couple days ago. We hit high temperatures in the mid to upper 90s through the weekend and into the start of the week. And it's only just been the last couple of days that our high temperatures have fallen a little bit closer to where we should be, where we usually are for this time of year. But even with that, every single day in the month of July so far, high temperatures in the afternoons have been either at or above average. And it looks like that trend will continue as we move through the next few days as well. That brings our total tally for 90-degree days so far this year up to 29. An average year, we have 47 days where the high temperature in Atlanta is either at or above average. The record year was back in 2019, where there were 91 days of high temperatures at or above 90 degrees. Now, our heat typically peaks into early August, so we're going to be adding on many, many more days likely to this tally as we continue through the rest of the summer. Overnight tonight, temperatures will remain mild. We'll get down into the low to mid 70s, right around 75 for that morning temperature tomorrow in Atlanta. So pretty comparable to where we were today. Throughout the morning, a mix of sunshine and cloud cover. By the afternoon, rain chances do start to spike. So we'll see those pop-up showers and storms that could contribute to a little bit of rain-cooled air. High temperatures, however, will still have the opportunity to soar up into the low to mid 90s. So we're going to intensify that heat for the end of the week and the start of the weekend. Forecasting a high for tomorrow of 95 degrees in Atlanta with mostly mid 90s around the metro, although some lucky spots will stay in the lower 90s, and then up into far north Georgia, especially at elevation, temperatures will be a little bit more comfortable, staying in the 80s in many spots, but still flirting with that 90-degree mark. The humidity is a big factor this time of year, and it's going to feel a lot hotter than the actual air temperature. So even though forecast highs for Atlanta are in the mid 90s, feels like temperatures are going to be in the triple digits. We'll see widespread feels like temperatures right around that 100-degree mark, and that'll intensify even further into Monday, even despite some slightly milder afternoon highs. So this puts us into borderline dangerous heat category. Usually for the National Weather Service to issue a heat advisory, high temperatures or our forecast heat index values have to be at or above 105. So we're not quite up to what is considered the criteria for those heat advisories, but we're flirting with it, which means that you do need to be just extra cautious in the afternoons through the next couple of days. Make sure that you are staying hydrated. You're taking breaks if you do have to be outdoors. Unfortunately, this shows no sign of letting up anytime soon. In fact, our long-term temperature outlook, so this is our 8 to 14 day outlook, it takes us through the end of the month, shows likely warmer than average temperatures. Now, it's Georgia in July. We're used to the heat, but this has been an unusually hot month for us so far, and there's no relief in that 7-day forecast. We may shave off a degree or two when it comes to those afternoon high temperatures, but there's really not a lot changing in this 7-day forecast. We're stuck in this pattern, which is aided by that tropical moisture for the next few days, which is why rain chances do look a little bit more promising today through the weekend and into the start of next week. Those rain chances do drop down to only about 20% as we make our way into Wednesday and Thursday, and we shave a couple degrees off those high temperatures. Overall, though, your 7-day forecast is pretty much the same every single day. That means if you have outdoor plans, you do need to make sure to keep an eye on the radar and just overall stay weather aware. None of these days really come with much of any risk for severe weather of any type, but it is the time of year where these storms can get locally pretty intense, especially with that possibility of tropical downpours. So heavy rainfall and lightning, always something we're on the lookout for, and some isolated storms could also produce some gustier winds at times. So just make sure to stay weather aware and keep an eye on the radar for those afternoon and evening plans especially. We will, of course, be tracking those storms here as well as on air and online as they bubble up each and every day. I hope everyone has a fantastic Thursday afternoon and has a great weekend.